Start with it had to get across 395.
Okay.
Okay.
They had to get okay? They had to get dock across 395, which was U.S. highway. So of course, this required massive coordination with all kinds of people. They had to close the highway. They had to take down a street light that was in the way. They had to get it across the road and then reopen the road. And that took, a couple of hours. And then it was just a matter of, a quarter of a mile or half mile to get it to where it was supposed to be rehabbed. Now it's semi-permanent home. It got there, and I think they fairly quickly discovered, or maybe they knew beforehand, that it would have to be moved again because they just didn't have the necessary equipment to do what they needed to do. So it got there, they did some work on it. It was then disassembled and moved by truck from Inyokern, California to Wichita, Kansas to the Boeing facility where it was built. And Boeing volunteers did the work. And the first time I saw Doc after it was rehabbed, you would not have recognized it. And there's also a story that goes with the name Doc. There was a image of the Disney character Doc on the nose of the aircraft. Was common to put nose art on military aircraft in those days. And so they contacted Disney, the Disney Corporation, to get permission to reinstall the painting that was, and Disney refused, and which sort of surprised everybody. Someone wrote to a newspaper or to some publication and with the story, and it quickly got published, and Disney changed their mind. So the nose art on Doc was added sort of late in the process, and the first time I saw Doc after it was flyable, I wouldn't have recognized the aircraft. It shined like a newly minted $50, newly minted quarter, whatever. And they allowed the volunteers on that trip to, they had been charging, I don't know, $5 a head or whatnot to go aboard the aircraft. Of course, they allowed the volunteers who had worked on it, didn't charge them, so got to explore the aircraft, and this was at Inyokern Airport. It visited there once. The next time it visited...
Where was that, do you remember?
I'm sorry?
The visit to Inyokern.
Oh my. I don't remember the date. It was probably about 10 years ago.
So 2012-ish.
Yeah.
Do you remember what year you pulled it out of the boneyard?
It would have been, oh my, I do not. It was...
80s, 90s?
It would have been, it would have been in the 1980s, because it took a long time. Well, as I said earlier, it took 400,000 450,000 work hours to make it flyable. That's, that's like one person working for 175 years. So anyhow, I forget where it was.
So you had the first visit, you got to kind of look inside of it.
Yes, and then on the next visit, I paid for a flight on dock. So I rode right behind. If you're familiar with with American military aircraft of that vintage, they had an insignia. I was on the starboard side, the right side of the aircraft, right where that insignia was, and took off from Inyukurn Airport, headed north, and flew basically parallel to the Sierras. They made, after some time, they made a left turn, or basically made a U-turn, flew back alongside the Sierras, and during this time you could get up and wander around in the aircraft. So I went to the tail gunner position, the waist gunner positions. There was an Astrodome on top for the navigator. Walked up, crawled through the tunnel over the bomb bays, went up on the flight deck, and it was quite an experience. That was in October of 2001. I'm sorry, 2021. Yeah, you're right, 2021, and that really was the beginning and the end of the adventure with Doc. Haven't seen Doc since, but it was a project that I was very happy to participate in.
I got chills just like the length of time you've been involved in
Yeah.
making that happen and being part of it.
Yeah, yeah, and all I did was I provided manual labor. I had no particular skills in anything that was really necessary to rehabilitate the aircraft.
There's plenty of people that could have provided labor and chose not to. Like you cared enough to
Oh yeah.
make it happen.
Oh yeah, and it was. There's still only 2 flyable B-29s, both in the Consolidated Air Force. I think that's the title. But if you look up Confederate Air Force,
It'll say what it changed.
yeah, it'll say what it changes to. But it was quite an experience. I mean, I've always had an interest in World War II and World War II equipment. The B-29 was a particularly interesting aircraft because it was very long range. It was built specifically to be able to bomb Japan during the Second World War from distant locations, and where they mostly flew from was an island in the Marianas called Tinian. And at one point, Tinian was the biggest airport in the world because they built lots of runways, because you don't send out one bomber at a time. And so once they took the Marianas and got control of Tinian, they were able to build the runways and start seriously bombing Japan. At least the most of the southern part of Japan. It had a bomb payload. It would carry it to 1,500 miles, carry 10 tons of bombs, and they sent raids. I read about one raid in particular where 334 B-29s dropped bombs continuously for 8 hours, incendiary mostly, and basically burnt 16 square miles of Tokyo to ashes, turned it to ash. They still, the casualty estimates for the Japanese range anywhere from 80,000 to 200,000, and they'll never be able to figure out what it actually was because it was so hot that the rising air currents actually would lift the latter planes because they would fly over the 334 aircraft were spread out over 8 hours. And by the time the last of them got there, the fires were so hot and the updrafts were so serious that it would lift a B-29, which is not a lightweight aircraft, several thousand feet. And but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Do you keep in touch with any of the people that you met along the way with Doc, or
No,
no?
no. We did our thing and then went our separate ways.
But without you guys, it wouldn't have gotten her story.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable.